Mark Camilleri no longer living in Malta following book publication. Malta Italy ring who smuggled drugs using local ferry plotted to kill suspected informant. Howard Key de Bono calls for end to quarantine for people who test negative via contact tracing. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening and welcome to Lovin Daily. I'm Diacono, joined today by Paula Cauchi. And make sure you stick around till the end of this episode because we're going to be interviewing Tomas Mikalauskas, the CEO of Recruitgiant, about the process that recruitment agencies undertake to bring third country nationals over Malta. So it's quite a hot topic that many businesses are facing at the moment. But before we get there, let's dive into the first story. Mark Camilleri, yes.
Reġa fuq il-headlines darba raġuni differenti, jider li l-lum kif beda kompla, ma nafx kemm is-seduta kien hemm jistemma nibel Erosjan Kutaja kontra Mark Camilleri, l-qorti kienet informata li Mark Camilleri m'għadux jgħix Malta u għalhekk se jinħatar kuraturi sabiex joħorlu postu fis-seduti ta' dan il-libel. Mark Camilleri wkoll ftit tal-ħin wara għamel status fejn qal li konferma iva li qiegħed jgħix barra minn Malta ma qalx fejn, qal però li issa jinsab ħafna iktar rilassat u teddida li qal li mhix teddida qal li issa li hu rilassat il-sienu ħajinħall daqsxejn iktar milli kien diġà maħluq. Ma kontx naf li ma kienx għadu nħall kompletament. Ġifieri issa naraw Mark Camilleri kemm permezz tal-ktieb u anke permezz tal-blogs u l-statuses tiegħu x'għandu xi jgħid going forward anke s-sena d-dieħla.
Well, yes, so this libel was filed because Mark Camilleri published his book Rent Seekers Paradise, which made quite a lot of allegations of people in power. This one in particular was about Kauchi, him claiming that she had an intimate affair with Jorgen Fenech and that she accepted corrupt money of him. She's denying it and the libel case is ongoing. But the book itself doesn't just mention Kauchi, it mentions a host of other people. It talks about fuel smuggling, about the murder of Diacono Galizia, about Joseph Muscat. Mark Camilleri, of course, was the chairman of the National Book Council, so a small government entity, but still a government entity. And yeah, the fact he left the country indicates to me, at least, that he's fearing some kind of retribution for what some kind of physical retribution to his life for what he's written, and seeing what happened in recent history. Unfortunately, you can't really blame him.
Jew sempliċement dejja jgħix fil-pajjiż.
Jista' jkun ukoll, but it's not. But so what? Then you go and pretend that it's a threat. I mean.
Le, ma safejna fih ma nafx korreġini jekk sejra żbaljata, qatt qal Mark Camilleri li rċieva teddid. Ma jidhirlix.
But doesn't mean if you don't say, doesn't mean you haven't received it.
Le, jekk jirċieva teddid u ma natax protezzjoni motu u nistiednu kieku żgur qala, però ma nistiednu jekk dak kull każ jgħidha mhux sew. Ma knowing Mark, naħseb vera rrid imur post fejn ikun iktar irrilassat meta ħareġ xixtri ma qgħadux ħarsu lejn in-nies, biss probabbli għax issa sar personalità f'pajjiżna. Ġifieri wieħed jara ta' min forsi jekk wieħed jistaqsih jara jekk jirrispondix għaliex sa fejn naf jien kien għamel post fuq l-intervisti.
Yes. So, moving on, quite a big story. Italian police have arrested a Maltese national called John Spiteri as part of a wide-ranging investigation into a cocaine and cannabis smuggling ring that linked Albania to Italy to Malta. So police in Italy suspect that the cannabis and the cocaine originated in Albania were driven up to Italy, down to Sicily, onto a Virtu ferry, onto Malta, and they ended up somehow in a fruit and vegetable shop in Attard and the garage in Marsa. Spiteri was believed to have been running the Maltese side of the operation. And what's particularly worrying about this is that police also found recorded conversations between one of the suspects and someone else. They didn't mention whom, probably for confidentiality reasons. And one of them is freaking out, saying, "Shortly, Johnny," a reference to John Spiteri, paid him to kill me. He wanted to kill me. So this is just the window had the curtain has been lifted a little bit onto how the black market operates. We've heard a lot about the black market recently with the discussion on cannabis reform. This is what it means. This is criminals literally managing to operate in plain sight, using locations that we frequent, using the ferry like everyone does, and very dangerous operations too, though. So at least hopefully the cannabis side of it will soon be eliminated.
Ekku, fil-fatt, ġeneralment meta jkun hemm xi ħaġa operazzjoni li taqbad qed nitkellem fuq il-kannabis, mhux fuq il-kokaina, ma il-kannabis ikollok jekk tkun xi konsenja kbira mbagħad tara li l-black market min ibiħha u Malta ikollu nuqqas ta' supply u hemmhekk tibda tisma' it-gergir sa ċertu punt għaliex m'hemmx aċċess regolari u regolat għal kannabis. Di l-istorja jiena bħallum ġimgħa kont fuq l-istess programm fejn ikkwotajna lil Claudette Buttigieg tgħid li l-liġi l-ġdida ser issaħħaħ jew tkabbar mhux qed nikkwota eżatt il-black market u hemmhekk konna jiena u Dave u ma qbilniex magħha. Għaliex l-alternattiva hija dawn l-smuggling rings kollha u proċess kbir għall-pulizija li qabdet din ir-ring għaliex ma tkunx taf ovvjament x'sustanzi jkunu tiġi trasportati illegalment u għad-detriment tal-end users ukoll. Neqilbu għal suġġett kompletament differenti COVID, qed jerġa' jsir popolari s-suġġett fuq fond kulħadd għax il-każijiet qegħdin jolgħu imma s'issa każijiet li hemm l-isptar rikoverati baqa' wieħed stabbli u baxx, fingers crossed għax dak li determina jkollniex milli tajjeb jew le. Howard Diacono fuq Facebook però wera d-diżappunt tiegħu illi l-industrija tiegħu, l-industrija tal-entertainment hija dik li dejjem isa tkun imwerwra illi l-mument li jitalgħulek il-każijiet l-isptar ħajaffaċċjaw konsegwenzi diretti u huwa sentimenti li jħossu dak kollha li jaħdmu b'xi mod jew ieħor fil-qasam tal-entertainment fejn fl-status tiegħu wera d-diżappunt tiegħu illi postijiet bħal ristoranti u lukandi eċetera mhumiex qegħdin jinforzaw jew mhumiex qegħdin jirrikorru għal fully vaccinated venue rules u hawnhekk naqbel miegħu. U appella wkoll sabiex jekk kienu possibbli min ikun kuntatt ta' każ pożittiv u jittestja negattiv ma jkollux għalfejn imur kwarantina. Fuq di ma nistax naqbel miegħu anke għaliex żgur li mhux suġġett ta' expertise ta' Howard Keat kif il-kant mhux expertise ta' Charmaine Cauchi illi le u għaliex inti teżisti incubation period tal-virus għaliex il-virus jaf idum sa 14 ġurnata biex jippikjaħ it-test, billi ma ppikjaħx it-test ma jfissirx li inti l-għada li mort tax-xogħol m'għandekx il-COVID u ma bellajtux il-kull minnu fl-uffiċċju miegħek. Jiġifieri fuq di Howard jiddispjaċini ma naqblux u nħallu l-pariri xjentifiċi lil hu wkoll lit-tobba.
Okay, so the thing is that eventually this has to end. Quarantine has to end. This is when
COVID hopefully has to end. Qabel tispiċċa d-ditta.
The virus itself isn't going to end, but the measures will have to end eventually. And this is one of the big ones, right? The fact that people who have direct contact with someone who tested positive are placed in quarantine and their lives are suspended for a long period of time. If the time is now or sometime in the future, I can't say for sure. But at the end of the day, it has to happen. And I mean, the thing that's starting to confuse me is that the goalposts seem to keep changing. So first, it was herd immunity, right? We reached herd immunity supposedly a while ago, but yet quarantine is still there. So there's something is still not right there. Now there's new variants that are coming up, so it's already mutated quite a few times in the space of a few years. So at what point is the world going to decide that's it? Like now we have we have vaccines that keep treating the variants whenever they pop up, but you know your personal restrictions. If you're scared of it, if you're concerned that you're going to get infected, you know what the risk. So we can't just keep locking down parts of society for extended periods of time. Because at the end of the day, there are people's lives in the balance over here
Ma
as well.
il-problema
As in if you-
Mija, li inti qed tibbaża ħafna, ok, fuq il-vaċċini għax huma soluzzjoni, imma qed tassumi li kulħadd ħajjieħu l-vaċċin, kulħadd ħajjibqa' jieħu l-vaċċini kull darba li l-COVID jinbidel u jinbidlu l-vaċċini. Issa, dik l-assunzjoni hija minnha nfisha ma tistax tiddeċidi li isma' mhux jien qed nipproteġi lil nnifsi nieħu l-vaċċin, jiena nieħu l-vaċċin mhux biex nipproteġi lil nnifsi biss, imma biex ma nispiċċax l-isptar nieħu sodda u apparat li jafu għax ħadthom jien għax ma ħadx il-vaċċin, hemm xi ħadd ieħor li ma jistax joħodhom u jmut. Jiġifieri mhix kwistjoni ta' nipproteġi lil nnifsi, rid nipproteġi lis-soċjetà. Idealment kulħadd jitlaqam mal-ewwel bla ma
But that's an argument of the common good. It's an argument in favor of the common good, but that's so then people should be pushed in that direction then.
Imma xi ħaġa jrid ikollok, ġifieri sakemm ma jifqux imutu n-nies madwar id-dinja bil-COVID u
Bil-COVID, I mean, it's not going to happen though. I mean,
ma nafx kif spiċċaw pandemiji preċedenti, onestament ma naf ma qatt ma kena naħseb pandemija daqshekk close to home, so forsi għalhekk qegħdin inkwetati.
This is the first pandemic there was a vaccine to it.
Allura ukoll, issa naraw naqra, imma
Yes,
ovvjament
but eventually, I'm to be honest, just to end it, I'm glad that people are actually finally mentioning the possible end to more restrictions. I mean, I know the debate globally is about travel bans, about more restrictions. I'm glad that there's a pushback from the industry, which is ultimately is going to be the one, like you rightly said, which will suffer the most if more restrictions are put in. He said that some won't be able to cope with the third lockdown. So it means people out of jobs, out of work, people pushed into poverty.
Għalhekk il-common good argument biex ħadd ma jispiċċa bla xogħol u bla business minħabba deċiżjoni personali tagħna.
But it's a long discussion. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Moving on, a psychologist who works at the prison, Diacono, has opened up a bit about what she has seen within the four walls of Cauchi in terms of prisoners' mental health. She was interviewed by Malta today and was asked about the state of the prison and whether the militaristic approach of Alex Dalli, the suspended director, contributed to a number of suicides by prisoners within Cauchi. So remember, 2 guards have been charged with the involuntary homicide of a prisoner, Nicholas, who died by suicide recently. But she's kind of brushed off these concerns, not saying that prison is a nice place to be in, far from it, but just saying that some of the claims that have been made in the press are not true. In fact, she said, it was quite interesting, as a psychologist, it was never my place to comment publicly, but what I can say is that with every article that came out, I did my own research, because this is my own interest to do so as a psychologist, to reassure myself that I'm not working in a place that promotes this behavior. After doing that research, she said, like, I've decided to stop reading these articles entirely because I believe that most of them are just fiction, which is just quite a strong statement coming from someone who works at Cauchi, someone who a psychologist who works at Cauchi. A lot has been said about the mental health of prisoners and about whether Alex Dalli's disciplinarian style was making their lives hell. But there's many points of view to this argument, and I'm glad that people who actually work there are speaking publicly about it, because sometimes there's just a lot of smokes and mirrors, right? Where the prison comes in, it's a very secretive organization.
U l-problema ħafna drabi illi forsi il-ħabs ma jkunx pożizzjoni li jirribatti ċertu allegazzjonijiet li jagħmlu familjari li jkunu mweġġa u jitkellmu minn post ġenwin ma post ta' ikunu mweġġera forsi ma jkunux oġġettivi kemm wieħed jixtieq u l-ħabs min-naħa l-oħra minħabba data protection u x'naf jiena ma jkunux libertà illi jagħtu l-full extent tal-verżjoni tagħhom u tiġri għal minn hekk meta jkollok newsroom tikkwota newsroom u tispiċċa ġifieri l-istorja kif spiċċat irrappurtata għalli ġara ma jkunux l-istess stejjer. Huwa interessanti ferm però dal-statement b'saħħtu tal-psikologa Gail De Bono għaliex l-istess De Bono hija l-President tal-Malta Chamber of Psychologists. Ġifieri din il-psikologa għandha ħafna xtitlef fuq bażi professjonali li kieku din qiegħda tiżaġeri jew tħarref, ġifieri meta titkellem għandha peace qawwi ta' kontabilta lejn iċ-chamber, lejn il-professjoni kollha tagħha għaw Malta. U bekk wieħed naħseb għandu jitfa' ċertu peace fuq dak li qed tajti li isma' l-ewwel darba tismgħu tirribatti illi forsi l-medja ħarbet tiġri, il-nies kienu emozjonati, nies kienu muġuha u forsi eżaġeraw l-affarijiet u l-sitwazzjoni ma kienx kif dik impinġija. U nemmen il-statement bħal da jkollu effett fuq l-opinjoni pubblika fejn jidħol Alex Dalli wkoll, li wieħed jibda jgħid mela forsi il-pressjoni li saret anka ħafna drabi forsi minn media illi jirreżenja u li jwarrab kienet għal xejn kellu fil-verità jissospendi ruħu jew le. Ġifieri game changer din l-intervista ma' Gail De Bono mhux ħażin. U nagħlqu l-programm fuq xi ħaġa kompletament differenti, xi ħaġa light, tifel żgħir jidher illi but thank you note lill-postman illi jgħenu f'mument ta' kriżi miskin dan it-tifel milli jidher inqabadlu l-lazz mal-katina tar-rota u ma setax juża r-rota għajjat il-postman għall-għajnuna l-postman għenu u ma ntixtor dak il-ħin raħanġlu u batlu uffiċjalment jirringrazzjah il-Malta Post. Ovvjament ħadda pjaċir b'dal ġestu riklamatu. Imma sabiħ li f'da żminijiet, mhux da żminijiet, post is-sena kollha, ma f'da żminijiet iktar minn qatt qabel. Nejnu il-kull minn naraw għandu bżonn najnuna fit.
Ta' żminijiet ma' bil-miliet jew il-COVID?
Le, il-miliet. Il-COVID toqgħod il-botek ma tafux bil-miliet.
I know a sweet story as in sometimes it doesn't hurt, it doesn't cost anything to not just to do a nice thing to someone but also to acknowledge that has been done even publicly sometimes. It makes someone's life day feel, it lifts someone's day up, and why not do it? So that's it from us today. We're going to be cutting to a clip, and when we get back, we'll be interviewing Tomas Mikalauskas about the process of recruitment agencies. Stick with us.
Everyone says that young people are the future, but all too often the powers that be suddenly become deaf when we want our voices heard. That's where the European Parliament has stepped in, giving young people a platform to share their ideas in one of the most powerful forums in the world. The European Youth event took place between the 8th and 9th of October, bringing together 10,000 young people to discuss more than 2,000 ideas for the future of Europe. With the 20 most popular ideas being presented to Parliament on the 22nd and 23rd of October, there are an incredible set of proposals covering some of the crucial issues facing the EU. It's clear that the environment is a priority for young people who presented concrete ideas looking to make recycling easier around the block and ensure that companies are held accountable for their role in climate change, something which has been lacking for far too long. Rule of law concerns in the EU should also be addressed, with young people demanding a more effective mechanism to protect the EU values that we all take for granted. What's clear is that young people support a federal Europe and are ready to work together to help solve today's and tomorrow's problems. Whether that's boosting our healthcare systems, our educational structures, and our digital landscape, or promoting multilingualism and a stronger asylum seekers policy. Ultimately, young people are demanding that we start learning from our mistakes to help create better policies in the future for you and me. How do you say awesome work in 24 languages? Well, whatever the case, I'm sure that young people will certainly have the answer. Should young people be the drivers of change? Let us know in the comments below.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is Tomas Mikalauskas, CEO of Recruitgiant. Tomas, thank you for being with me here today. So, we often speak about third country nationals working in Malta. You know the process quite well. Like, what's the process of bringing a third country national to Malta? If you can break it down in a few steps, please.
It's a quite lengthy process with the documentation. I mean, collecting the documents from their home country and submitting to Identity Malta, it takes a while. So from getting their CVs right to getting their passports checked and getting all the references, diligence checks, it takes a while. Then you submit to Identity Malta, and then you wait.
But
for
before
the-
that, though, how does it work? Do you have representatives in their
We
countries?
have our own officers over there.
In their countries?
Yes, in
Okay.
India or Nepal.
And
I've been in recruitment for 20 years. So yes, we've started from working in London.
okay. And if someone if an employer needs employees, do they go to you and tell you, like, we need 5 cleaners, for example?
Yes, usually they give us a job description, what they would like from the candidate to have. Based on the job description, we search within the country what we have, we do the interviews, and we find a candidate suitable for the position.
Okay.
And then probably the documentation starts.
Okay, and that means going to Identity Malta.
Going to
Get-
Identity Malta, submitting the documents, paying the relevant fees, and waiting for the approvals, whether issued or not.
Okay, and just to clarify, when they're in Malta, they would already have an employer there?
Yes, when in Malta, they already come to direct employer because employment license is issued based on the employer.
Hmm. And will they be employed technically by Recruitgiant or by the employer?
It depends. It's a both option. Where the employer looks for candidates for themselves, then it's going to be employed for the employer directly. Or if we look employers for ourselves, it's going to be employed by Recruitgiant. It depends how they want.
Hmm. And their salaries.
Yes.
Or do they, if they pay you the salaries, do you then give them on, do you pass them on in full, or do you take a
Well,
do you
if
take a
the
commission from?
candidate work directly for the employer, we have no
Yeah.
fees. We don't collect salaries. The employer pays them directly. We are not involved in the payment processes.
Mhm.
But if the candidate works for us, we have our wages as well. We do pay the wage based on the job they do.
Okay. And how many of these will you say you get every month?
For ourselves, I mean, or
Now, how many third country nationals do you bring over?
for the last year, as you know, the pandemic, we have not been managing to get many, but we have a couple of hundred people working
Mhm.
at the moment.
How has the pandemic made it change the way you operate? Because obviously there's lots of travel restrictions.
Travel restrictions, yes. Then we started looking to the different markets. We have not looked for the third country nationals in their home countries. We start looking into European countries, whether we can bring them from, let's say, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, which is less hard with the restrictions, so at least they can travel.
But they're not third country. They're EU nationals. so-
Even the third country nationals already living in the EU, which have relevant documents.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's kind of poaching the third country nationals from other countries.
we're looking for the suitable candidates, correct, yes.
Okay. And what makes Malta attractive for them?
Wages, obviously the country, the weather, but wages, mostly the wages.
That's an interesting thing because there's lots of criticism that third country nationals don't get good wages in Malta.
I don't believe so. The third country nationals, as far as I know, they pay very well.
Okay. Are there any renegade recruitment agencies who, not yourself obviously, but renegade recruitment agencies who take most of the salaries or take a large chunk
I
of?
cannot comment on any other agencies, but our process is very simple. We employ a person, we pay wage. It's as simple as that.
Or unless they move on to the employer completely.
Unless, yes, we had the cases where the employers wants to hire them directly, which we have no objections to do so.
Okay, so that's if that's the case. If someone is employing a worker via your agency, and they decide, I like this person, I want to keep them full on. What's the process there?
We basically change again, we need to collect the same documents and reapply through Identity Malta to get a new permit issued on the relevant employer. Or basically we're going twice through the same process.
Mm-hmm. This is a fact in Maltese law, which says that after a few days that a third country national is left unemployed, you're going to be you're declared an illegal immigrant.
Yes, we have it. I mean, if TCN loses a job, I think they have 10 days to find alternative employer or leave the country. Yes, that is the case.
Does this give rise to abuse?
Not really, because after 10 days, the Identity Malta don't accept the documents, so they have no actually option either to find employer or leave the country.
No, but does this abuse, so just to be specific, does it encourage abuse on the job itself? So that maybe there'll be an employer who can abuse a worker knowing that they're not going to quit the job, seeing as they can get removed from the country?
Not really, because at this point we have a lot of companies looking for employees. So we've been actually struggling to keep the employees working with us. They used to change the employer very easy.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously lots of debate about that country nationals and how does Malta need more of them? Do we need fewer of them? What's your opinion?
I think at this point we would need to find a way that we can offer the same opportunities for third country nationals and locals, European nationals, but I think we do need more employees at this point, yes.
Same opportunities in what sense?
I mean, the same opportunities for the jobs. I mean, we don't have enough locals to do the same job. We do need a bit of third country nationals to continue to grow the businesses.
Which jobs do you think are the most in demand for third country nationals at the moment?
I think the building and technical jobs from the different kind of technicians. That is the most required jobs.
Mm. And which countries would you say would you tap into for this?
We work mostly with India, so Indians quite good at technical jobs. So we do work with the Indian nationals a lot.
Isn't there an element of it being unfair on a country like India that, you know, a country like Malta comes in and takes their workers by offering them better wages?
No, I don't think that's Malta only. All the EU does it.
No, I know,
So-
not just Malta as an
So it's up to them to choose whether he wants to go or not. If he gets the job offer which is higher than his salary at home, I'm sure. I mean, I would do the same. I was third country national before the EU, so that's how we worked. I left my country exactly the same because somebody offered a bigger, better opportunity.
And do you get, like, when you're... What are the main questions they tend to ask you about Malta?
But the most question basically is a wage. That is what they're after.
Okay. And even if it's a minimum wage, it's considered...
Yes, the minimum wage is considered higher than they get at home.
And what about the living conditions in Malta?
I mean, the conditions is quite comfortable. As far as I know, I never heard of a lot of complaints.
Okay. And do you think there's a bit of perception issues revolving around the role of recruitment agencies in Malta?
It probably is, but the way we work, I'm not interacting with what's happening around other recruitment agencies.
Not about your own?
We're sticking with us in a proper manner. The wages paid, we don't have any issues with any authorities.
Okay. And if, finally, if a business wants to hire a third country national, what's the process? So what they have to contact you?
They're contacting us. Basically, we meet over the Zoom or face-to-face and listen to what they want.
And then you can go ahead and get...
And then we can go ahead and probably find a suitable candidate for them.
Okay, brilliant. Tomas Mikalauskas, thank you very much.
you.
Thank you very much for being with us here today. Thank you for following Lovin Daily. Make sure you follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest developments, and have an evening full of loving.